I've been coaching people since 2020, and over the years I've tried loads of different ways to get new clients. Some were really quick and got results the very next day, and some were so slow, took ages, and felt like a complete waste of time. So recently I ran a little test. I picked the 5 of the most popular ways that people use to get clients today, and I tried all of them using the same offer, same audience, and same goal. And guess what happened? Well, some were way better than I thought, whilst others honestly just shouldn't have tried it in the first place. So in this video, I'm going to show you which ones worked, which ones didn't, and give each one a score out of 10. So let's start with the first one. Warm outreach. This means talking to people who already know you. Not strangers, not cold emails. I'm talking about the people who are already in your world. Maybe they already have followed you for a little while. Maybe they've replied to your stories or some of your posts. Or maybe they even DM'd you in the past. Here's how I did it. I opened up my Instagram and looked through the people who have viewed my stories or just liked some of my recent posts. Then I picked 20 of them and just sent a simple message like, "Hey mate, hope everything is okay. How is it going?" Nothing salesy, just a pretty straightforward message. And guess what? Most didn't reply, but a few did. And because I was just being normal and not trying to pitch anything, the conversations felt so straightforward and quite easy. One guy actually mentioned that he was actually stuck with their offer, and I just simply said, "Hey, by the way, this is exactly what I help people with. Do you want me to explain how I could potentially help you?" And he said, "Yeah, why not? Let's jump on a call." We jumped on a quick call the very next day, and then he became a client a few days later. Now, I'll be honest, this method isn't fun. It's not exciting and actually can feel a little bit awkward at first, but it did work, especially when you're just starting out and need to get those first 2 clients to build momentum. It's also way more effective when your offer is clear. See, if people know exactly what you help with, they'll either say, "Yep, that's not for me," or "Actually, I actually do need that." So what's the downside? Well, let's be honest, it doesn't really scale and you can't really do it forever. Eventually, you will run out of people to message. And it also takes time to do it manually. But in the very beginning, as a short-term move, especially when you're starting with 0, it's a decent option. So my score, 6 out of 10. Decent results, no money needed, but not really sustainable long-term. It's kind of like fishing with a stick. You might catch something, but it won't feed you forever. Now let's talk about email newsletters. This one takes a lot longer to work. But once it's running, it can actually bring you a lot of quality leads without you doing much work at all. Here's what I did. I created a simple landing page, just one page with a headline and a box to enter your email. And in return, I offer something helpful for free. And in my case, it was 30 monetization tips in 30 days. Every single time someone signed up, they got a tip in their inbox every single day. So no fluff, no hard selling, just literally giving people value. And here's the best part. I didn't even write a single email after they signed up because all of those emails were already automated. Once I set them up, they just ran in the background. In the first few days, literally nothing happened. But about a week later, people did start booking in calls and they start saying to me things like, "Hey, just read your email. Do you do any coaching?" That turned into a paying client too. So why does this work so well? Guess what? Because emails build trust. People open their inboxes pretty much every single day. And when you show up with their helpful stuff, not selling, just literally helping, they begin to see you as like the go-to expert on that particular subject. Now, however, there is a downside. The fact that it's slow and it took me weeks to get my very first client. So you will need to keep sending traffic to the landing pages. Otherwise, no one's going to see it. But the reality is the longer you do it, the better it gets. It's kind of like planting seeds. You don't eat the same day you plant, but if you give it time, the results will start to come in. So overall, my score, 7 out of 10. Not instant, but really, really powerful long term. So if you're patient, this one can really add up. All right, now let's talk about one of my clients, Marion. Now, she gets most of her clients through in-person networking. She goes to local businesses, events, meetups and small gatherings, and honestly, she loves it. And she likes it so much because you get to meet the real people face to face and you can actually build trust quickly. And if someone's interested, you can explain what you do right there and then. It's kind of like warm outreach, but in person. She told me that one of her favorite things is seeing people's reactions in real time because you don't need a sales page or a fancy marketing. You just talk and have conversations. And yeah, she actually signed a few multiple clients this way, but there is a catch. I'll be honest, she told me it's a lot of work. You have to get dressed, travel to events, talk to loads of people, and most of whom aren't just ready to buy there and then. And if you stop going, the leads stop too. So it's great if you love people and enjoy being in those rooms, but it's not very scalable. Marion herself admits it that if she actually takes a break or gets too busy to go out, the client flow dries up really fast. So my score, 6 out of 10. Fun if you're a people's person and good for building relationships, but it's really time heavy and hard to scale. Now, this next one really surprised me, and that's webinars. I used to think webinars were like really old school, like something people did back in 2017. But after testing it out not that long ago, I take it back. Here's what I did. I invited my audience to a free live session where I shared some of my best tips, answered some questions, and just made a soft pitch at the end. Now, for the most part, I didn't try to be salesy. I just gave real value, showed that I know what I'm talking about, and just allowed people to decide if they wanted more help. And what happened? Well, I got 3 clients from just one single webinar. And the best part, they were very easy sales because they were warm, excited, and already trusted me before we even spoke. But here's the downside. You do need an audience, and even if it's a small one, and it only works best with people already know who you are. So if you're just starting out and no one has ever heard of you before, it may not be the best one. But if you've been building a bit of trust online and maybe even have a few hundred followers or an email list, this one can work really, really well. So I'd give it maybe an 8 out of 10. It takes a little bit of effort to start up, but the results can be really strong, especially if you're good at teaching your subject. All right, now let's talk about the one that has caught me off guard the most. TikTok Lives. I'll be honest, I didn't think much of it at first. I thought it was just people dancing or answering silly questions. But then I saw some of my students try it, and the results, I'll be honest, were crazy. One student went live every single night for a week with no fancy setup, just her phone. And by the end of that week, she booked in 5 sales calls. Another one closed their very first high-ticket client, all from going live on a TikTok. So I had to try it myself. And honestly, it works. I kind of think it's like having your own little TV show where people can ask questions, come in, and see your face in real time. See, this way you build trust a lot faster than a regular video because TikTok Live pushes those lives to people that are not just your followers. That being said, there is a downside, and it only works if you actually do it. You need to go live often, and you need something valuable to say every single time. And it helps if you're confident on camera, or at least you're willing to get better with practice. But for getting your first client, especially if you have no audience and want to stand out, this one is probably one of the best ones out there. Therefore, I'll give TikTok Lives like a 9 out of 10. It's fast, it's free, it builds real trust, you just have to show up. So after testing all 5, here's how they're scored. Warm outreach, 6 out of 10. Works, but it's a grind and it's hard to keep up. Email newsletters, 8 out of 10. Slower, but builds long-term trust and turns cold leads into warm buyers. Networking in person, 6 out of 10. Great if you like in-person stuff, but again, really hard to scale. Webinars, 8 out of 10. Can be powerful, but takes a lot of time and planning to get it right. And TikTok Lives, 9 out of 10. Fastest way to build trust and get clients, even with 0 followers or no fancy equipment. Here's the truth. There is no perfect way to get clients, but if you know your offer, you show up consistently, and you pick just one strategy to master, you will start seeing results. And if you need help picking the best strategy for your business and turning into a full client getting system, then book in a free call with me using the link below. We'll go through exactly where you're at, what you're offering, and what the best way to turn your audience into paying customers. And if you're not quite there yet for a call, then make sure to check out my 30 monetization tips in 30 days. It's literally packed with actual ideas that actually work. Either way, the worst thing you can do right now, essentially in my opinion, is nothing. So pick one, start testing, see what one works and what doesn't, and let's get your first client.